Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gramener podcast. I'm Sunil. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Anand S, the co-founder and CEO of Gramener. Anand is recognized as one of India's top data scientists and alumnus of IIM Bangalore and IIT Madras. Anand loves to interact with data enthusiasts through multiple events such as TEDx, JSFU, PyCon, and Data Hack Summit. Today, we'll be talking about why generative AI is trending in enterprises, discussing it from both providers and hesitant adopters' perspective. So, Anand, welcome to the podcast, and we'll keep it short. My first question is actually not a question; it's a follow-up question. I've been following a couple of your podcasts earlier. You did one with Analytics India magazine. You did one with Qatar. It kind of piqued my interest when you mentioned that generative AI is a technology gifted to us by aliens, that too without an instruction manual. That's a unique perspective. So, if generative AI is a gift from aliens, what do you think they intend for us to achieve with this technology? I just want to know what wild speculations you have.
Firstly, this is a phrase I borrowed from Simon Willison, who is the co-author, inventor of Django, and also one of the more prolific uh, Gen AI researchers. But if so, what is the intent? Honestly, the first thought that popped into my head was mischief. But what other intent could there be? Not that we would ascribe intent to such a thing, but if we, let's say, use a human intent, so why would, let's say, uh, the Spanish give some of the more advanced tools to, say, the Aztecs or the Mayans or the Incas, who were at least technologically perhaps less advanced? Trade, in all likelihood, take something else in return from them. Who knows what the aliens are taking from us? And second possibility, uh, advancement. Today we would do it with the intent of creating a market. Say, look, give this technology to people so that there'd be a larger market for our goods because of their prosperity. And third, possibly goodwill. These are the three things that I would, if aliens were like humans, these are the reasons I would ascribe to them.
That makes up for some good script for the next Marvel movie. But uh, I also believe that generative AI indeed is an if it is indeed an extraterrestrial gift. Do you believe there is a responsibility on our part also to use it ethically? There's a lot in the news. What weird, unethical use of Gen AI have you observed so far?
Um, I have somewhat broad views on what constitutes right or wrong. Um, Yuval Noah Harari put it quite well in, might have been Sapiens or one of the other two books in his trilogy, where he argues for what constitutes natural. For instance, homosexuality is something that a lot of people have described as unnatural.
Unnatural,
There
yeah.
are literally laws against it, which are being repealed. His argument is if it is possible, then it is natural. Nothing more than that. And right or wrong are meanings ascribed to societies in specific contexts that may be beneficial at specific times, may be harmful at specific times. Purely from a biological perspective, I can see how the reproduction is something that homosexuality does not grant
Right.
without any kind of genetic engineering to support it, for example. And for the vast majority of human society's existence, I can see how that at least would be one clear disadvantage. And from that lens, therefore, is suboptimal.
Right.
But if we paint that as a picture of what non-ethical uses, or if we use that as a definition, which is today, here and now, we consider certain uses not ethical, and we therefore it is labeled as unethical. Then there have been several. There was a court case in which a lawyer used ChatGPT to identify the most relevant cases. And ChatGPT hallucinated, generated cases that did not exist. And the lawyer was fined $7,000 and his client lost the case. And
Okay, so
the media also got a fair bit of uh, traction thanks to that. Uh, uh, Students cheating is another example. But that is the kind of thing that happened when Google was launched. Google is not allowed. Wikipedia is not allowed. So my daughter's IA assignment, for instance, extended essay, sorry, has a clause that it should not refer to Wikipedia, even in this day and age. However, in her case, it's a much more thought through policy because their point of view is that Wikipedia is not an original source and the extended essay needs to cite original sources. In many of the cases where the reactions were early on, it was more a this is a new tool. We don't know what can be done with it. Therefore, let's ban it to start with, which is how many organizations, Samsung being one of the early ones in this space, said data might leak, therefore let us ban it. And it can that will prevent a set of possible misuses or of unethical use. That's not a bad thing in themselves. I'm running a course at IIT Madras where it's a course called Tools in Data Science, where I
okay.
had to explicitly tell them Chat GPT allowed. This is part of a long list of instructions saying
Mhm.
during exams, you may check the internet, you may watch the course related videos, you may watch course unrelated videos, you may, and then there was a confusion. So does that mean we can use WhatsApp and collaborate with each other? So I had to clarify, yes, you may use WhatsApp. It is perfectly allowed for another person to write your exam if you can count them into doing social engineering. Because from my perspective, get the job done. Once I've hired you, if you are able to pay somebody enough to get your job done, as far as I'm concerned, that is great. So do whatever, but it has to be done over a very hard task in a very short time. And if you're able to
Right.
engineer that in any which way, then kudos to you. And as part of that list of instructions, the next one was yes, ChatGPT allowed, explicitly allowed. You are welcome to copy paste your answers from ChatGPT. If you're able to get ChatGPT to do your work, fantastic.
Cheapest
Now,
labor available.
right, use it, right? Now, this is a case of me having a framework where I can, for my objectives, ChatGPT works and does not have any problems. There are other frameworks or perspectives where it does not. Over time, these frameworks will adopt or adapt to the powers of ChatGPT and learn how to deal with the problems and the risks. Until then, yes, there are unethical or disallowed uses of ChatGPT, this lawyer's case being one of the more prominent ones, and that will continue for a while.
Right. So that is on a fictional note. Now, coming back to the topic, the reality. You are working on a lot of generative AI projects at Gramener, talking to multiple clients on an everyday basis. Uh, what new this technology is bringing for them? Things were working fine before it as well. You were working on a lot of projects, you were implementing AI models, you were solving complex challenges for businesses sustainability. What new generation generative AI is bringing, and why is it crucial for these businesses?
During World War II, planes were having a bit of trouble aiming bombs. Why is that a problem? Because it takes a fair bit of physics, a fair bit of calculations, to drop the bomb accurately. So computers started getting used for those. They would, knowing the position of the plane, knowing the position of the target, and with some inputs around wind direction and velocity, they would compute the release point and have the bomb send that information. The same physics was being done. A person who was sitting and doing it manually earlier would have been able to do this here as well. Only two things changed: speed and cost. I would actually add a third,
Mm.
which is capacity, meaning the number of people that could do that calculation was probably limited to few 100,000 people who were distributed all over doing all kinds of work. Now, there is no limit to the number of such people. We can do multiplication in our heads. We don't need calculators, yet they are ubiquitous even for relatively simpler calculations, which brings in another perspective, which is ease. So I would say that, like most technologies, the reason any technology is effective is because it makes stuff cheaper, faster, easier, and at larger scale. There may be some things that it makes better, and I consciously didn't mention better in this list. But we don't need this technology to beat existing technology for it to be powerful. We'll talk about ways in which it is actually better. Now, let's dig into this a little bit and see how is it cheaper, faster, or at scale. The at scale is the easiest part. Today, if I needed uh, an image for my blog post, without DALI, I would have to go find somebody, a freelancer, and the number of such freelancers is limited. My access to such freelancers is limited. Therefore, I have the ability to hire, even if I didn't, what I put it, even if I had no problem paying the money and waiting, I still may not have been able to do it because there weren't that many freelancers accessible to me. Some of the technologies that made that possible include sites like Fiverr and others where I can post a job and get it done. But that isn't as accessible as a machine that will consistently always take up my job,
That's a
which was not
time-consuming thing as well. You have to go to Fiverr, talk to someone, give requirement, they will revert in the next 1 or 2 days. It's time-taking process as well.
exactly. And therefore, you've covered the speed. So it's faster as well. And it's cheaper. On Fiverr, it costs $5. Here, it is practically free.
But you mentioned capacity, Anand. So it's like the work that was being done by two people, resources when you need it, machine or an algorithm is doing it now. Wouldn't it hamper somebody's job security? Although when a decade back there was a revolution of artificial intelligence, similar questions were coming, but then people got adjusted. I mean, people adapted technology in a way that it is working with synergies in sync. Do you think with generative AI as well, there will be also a human in the loop all the time?
Hans Rosling famously quoted that, in his opinion, the biggest technological revolution was the washing machine. He said, my
Why do
grandmother used to take all these clothes, go all the way
you
to whatever the Dhobi Ghat equivalent, and
think?
wash the clothes, come back and slog. And the washing machine just made all of that possible, right? Just made all of that vanish, taking away the jobs of every single washerman that there is. Near my house at Chennai, there was this, not was, is this government allocated area for washermen to come ply their trade. They wash, they dry, and all of that. It's a bunch of wet stones with a hanging area and stuff like that. Earlier, I used to see a whole bunch of washermen. Now I think the area still exists, and I think there are a few dry cleaning shops around it, but that as a community has vanished. There used to
Mm.
be an entire industry of typewriting institutes. That entire industry has vanished. And
Right.
we could go on to name several other industries across time that have vanished. Have these people suffered? Yes, these people have suffered. Have these people, have some of them died because of that kind of suffering? Well, today we see the kind of problems that farmers in India are facing, and some of them are literally, uh, you know, consuming poison and as a result. So, is the impact of technology real? Yes. What I've seen based on very, very limited observation is that the impact of technology hits the poorest the hardest.
Yeah.
The people that AI in today's generation replaces, the current iteration of generative AI, the people that it's replacing are far from the poorest. So they are not likely to be hit as hard. They are likely to be hit. But a reasonably large number of them will learn how to use this technology and move on. There will be potentially a minority that will not. Some of them will get support, some of them will not. Those that suffer the worst will therefore take a hit in salary, will take a hit in their career growth,
Right.
and will take, to take this as an extreme extrapolation, will move from upper middle class to middle class. Yes, that will happen. I suspect that consuming poison may not happen because of Gen AI.
It's also about adaptability. I mean, the more you are ready to adapt a technology, uh, you get into it. And I think then you again work with synergies. And the I also think that the more jobs you will lose, uh, you can gain a lot more jobs. I mean, I think this can open a lot of avenues for some new skills. So that is also one part of the coin.
Without doubt,
But
and no questioning the advantages.
yeah, but is the market open to adapt Gen AI into their business processes, or do you still find, do you talk when you talk to clients or prospects, do you still find there is a hesitation in adoption, and they want to stick to, I wouldn't say traditional methods, but whatever advanced operations they are running, they want to stick to that.
No, I'm yet to meet an organization that has said, I don't want to do this the Gen AI way. And I have seen organizations that have not figured out how to use Gen AI, is in fact the majority. Uh, we faced when Gramener started in 2011, we faced the problem of people not understanding what data visualization was
Right.
and not being willing to spend on data visualization.
Mm.
So at that time, we needed something to hitch on to. And big data was the phrase that started unlocking budgets. People, in fact, uh, there is a bank that reached out to us and said, see, I have a budget for big data to
Mm.
spend. If I don't spend it in the next 3 months, that budget will vanish. So can you please do something? We said, what? They said, I don't know. I'm not too fussed.
Mm.
Define your own project, execute your own project. If you want the money, here it is. Just do something cool. That is the situation that we're seeing with Gen AI right now. My CEO is willing to spend. In fact, we have a mandate that all of our projects should have Gen AI, or only Gen AI based projects will receive a budget. Therefore, can you do something with Gen AI? Okay, what do you want to do? We
Mm.
don't really know, and to be perfectly honest, we don't really care. Just do something with Gen AI.
Yeah.
That's literally the phase we are.
Awareness is yet to be done.
It will fall, correct.
Mm.
And it's not a bad thing. So for that same bank, initially I was not only skeptical but also pretty snide about this the foolish way in which the bank was spending money. A year later, the initiatives they had funded across several teams had led to 80% failures and 10 to 20% successes, which they showcased internally. And these successes were reasonably big ones. And then the entire leadership team started seeing the power of what data could do and started adopting a data culture. So they actually got it right.
Yeah.
They said, it's all right if 80-90% of them fail. We will take the successes. We will show people what can be done. And that's money well spent.
True. Resuming on the same note, I was asking, is cost also one of the factors that comes into action when a decision maker is trying to adopt generative AI services? Because uh, when you see services like ChatGPT or DALI, or there are multiple tools creating videos, creating automated PPTs, they are not so expensive when you come, even ChatGPT 4 is like $20 a month. Other tools are also $15, $20 a month. So cost is not a factor when it comes to adoption, or do you think it is? Because then again, you are building solutions on top of these models.
The majority of the organizations are in the phase of trying to figure out what can be done. And at this stage, they are not worried about cost. They're saying, let's figure out if we can do stuff faster, if we can do stuff eventually cheaper.
Yeah.
But this initiative that I'm spending money on may give me nothing and therefore is not saving me cost. That's okay. When productionizing, they absolutely will look at cost, see if it's a cheaper alternative. Yesterday, we were having a discussion on whether identifying a photo of a driver is of good quality for an organization that's recruiting drivers is worth doing through Gen AI. Here is the economics of it. A human can evaluate the photo based on, is it against a light background? Is the face covered? And is the face center? Three questions in a span of 30 seconds and fill it in an Excel sheet.
Right.
Let us assume that it costs about $15 per hour for a person with moderately low skill to be hired for this kind of a job. Now, in 1 hour, in 1 minute, they can do 2 images. So they can do about 120, which means that it costs about 12.5 cents to process one picture. Right. Now, what is the cost of doing this through technology? One option is to say, oh, I can just upload it into ChatGPT, the public version for free, and ask those questions or whatever model. But in reality, if I want to do it at scale, there would be a GPU behind it. Now,
Right.
that GPU needs to be of reasonable power. To hire a GPU, it costs anywhere from $10 to $55 an hour, which is on the one hand at the same speed straight away more expensive than the person, but the GPU can do it faster. But will I get requests that fast? Initially, I may have a large number of driver photos.
You have
But
the
when
need or not.
correct, when a new driver comes in, that need is not going to come at the rate of 2 per minute or faster. That is going to come at a much lower rate, 2 per day at best. So here is the job where it makes no sense for this job standalone to get to be automated. Therefore, you'll say have somebody pay them $15 an hour and handle this photo as part of a larger portfolio of tasks. Over time, there will be 20 things that this one person or GPU needs to do, and you put them all together, then it starts making economic sense. At which point you say, now I have a large set of things that I can do, or you run this through a service, and they will start getting automated. So there, the economic calculation is something that we certainly can make, and there is a fixed or a variable cost associated with each of these, and that is what will absolutely drive whether something goes into production or not, because it's the ultimate bottom line.
Right. So one concern that I'm taking away from what you just said is whether there is a need of it or it is not. There is one concern on the customer side that will lead to whether you have to adopt generative AI for a particular operation or not. What are other concerns that they have that are holding them back?
Security is one concern. For example, if I have to send the data outside my organization, will that lead to a problem? But also data coming into the organization. If, let's say, I'm using a piece of research to discover a technique that I will patent, then can a lawyer claim that this came out of a generative AI model that was trained on material that I'm lifting off of, and therefore that patent has an original claim. So even the data that comes in can have a problem. If I'm writing code with generative AI, then does that code belong to me, given that that code was not trained on stuff that I own as copyright? And worse yet, I may not be able to confidently say whether that only came from public sources that I don't even need to credit. The
Right.
model may have been trained on all the stuff. So that's another example of security or data concerns, both in and out. And this is a concern that I'm actually seeing on a day-to-day basis. I haven't seen much by way of concerns around hallucination, and that is largely because the people that are using the application are the people that are doing the job right now. And most managers feel they are qualified to evaluate the accuracy and do a round of validation on top of it. But soon that will be a concern, and it is already a concern for applications that will be interacting with the public. For example, we are working with a bank who wants to build a chatbot for their customers based on their knowledge base. Now, let us take an example. Say this is Citibank. Now, if a customer asks Citibank, what's the best deposit I should invest in? And it says, go for the Bank of America deposit of such and such. That is a brand disaster, right?
But that's
So,
a very biased statement as well.
well, it may simply be looking at the list of interest rates that it has been trained on and make a factually correct statement. But that is not what you want your bot to do. So that's an example of brand risk. Now, the OWASP list of LLM vulnerabilities or risks is a pretty good comprehensive one to look at as a framework. But in terms of what customers are worried about, it does not seem to have covered the bulk of that, and data security seems to be the major concern.
Right. And how do you convince? I mean, not about. I want you to answer this for a larger service provider community for generative AI. What key aspects they should focus on when they are convincing some potential buyers about implementing generative AI into their, although considering uh, uh, that all the problems that they feel, all the concerns they have regarding hallucinations or regarding any other concerns, data security. What key aspects should they focus on to convince potential buyers?
At the moment, the problem does not seem to be convincing the audience. The audience is saying, I have money, I don't know anything about it, do something. So, if
Right.
anything, I would say the current environment is one of educating and solutioning safely. So, I would say we need to educate the customers that all of these dangers exist. And how does one deal with it? Well, on the one hand, if it comes to data security, run local models. Don't run cloud models. If it is knowing what it has been trained on, then use models where you know what the training data set is. A few models publish it, many models don't. You may want to be careful in what model you use for what purpose. When it comes to stuff like hallucination, have multiple layers of review. A significant chunk of those reviews could be automated. So LLMs are pretty good at reviewing each other, and they have human-like capabilities in that regard. But keeping in mind that this is no more, in fact, is arguably less infallible than having humans. So potentially put in humans in the loop where the sensitivities are ultra critical. These are the kinds of mitigations that you put into a solution. But for clients, it's not usually them that are raising the objection. It's usually us needing to educate them on the risks.
And us being a custom data solution providers company, what role does customization plays? How what layer of benefit does it adds on when you're building custom solutions rather than, or maybe when you're convincing a potential buyer to go for custom solutions rather than solutions that are already present in the market who work on a similar function?
If a solution is present in the market that meets the needs, it is usually the best option. And the reason I say that is simply because it's already built. So there is speed. It is likely to be used by multiple clients, therefore cost is likely to be lower. The only reason why one would build a custom solution is if there is a need that is not met. And that need is important enough that an organization is willing to spend. Today, the ecosystem is so nascent that the majority of the solutions are custom solutions simply because the process works like this. Customer says, I want X, Y, Z. And we look in the market, we find nothing that meets those needs. We say, look, the closest that we find is this which matches X, this which matches Y, and nothing that matches Z. Are you okay just having one application for X and one application for Y? And some of them change their needs accordingly and say, okay, I don't have that much of a budget. I want to show examples of what will work. Therefore, let me take X and Y and use it. Approach A. Or approach B that says, no, I actually do need X, Y, and Z, and I need to spend for it. This is important enough a use case. So please build it for me.
Sure. Thanks, Anand, for sharing your point of view on adoption of Gen AI in enterprises. I have organized a very small game that will take next 5 minutes. I have generated some fake news from ChatGPT about how generative AI is creating wonders, and I have also collected some real news. I want you to answer me whether the news which I'm talking about is true or false, and whether you have heard about it or not somewhere. I have four or
Got
five
it.
instances. The first one is, and I have written it down, so I'll read it out. An AI-enabled toothbrush has been invented that gives real-time feedback based on how much pressure you apply while brushing your teeth for optimal brushing.
So let me make two guesses so that I can be wrong in two ways. First, I will guess whether it was generated by ChatGPT, and then I will independently guess whether it is true or false. So my guess is this was not generated by ChatGPT and that this is true.
It indeed is true, and it has been done by Oral-B. They have built it with an IO magnetic technology, and they have some sensors. The toothbrush display, it has a display, and the display will turn red when you're brushing too hard. It will turn white when you're brushing too lightly, and it will turn green when you are brushing it with a perfect pressure or speed.
Wow,
That's interesting.
that is cool.
Yeah. Second is generative AI to enhance and control dreams. Users can allegedly select dream themes from exploring alien landscapes to starring in a blockbuster movie, offering a personalized and interactive dream experience. So you can
My
select what you can dream.
my marginal guess, and I say marginal in the sense that I'm probably only 70% confident, this is not generated by ChatGPT, and that it is also, however, not true in reality, in that I don't believe it exists, but is something that an organization has proposed in actual fact. What is it?
That's right. Although I have generated it by ChatGPT,
Oh,
but yeah, I mean it's not a true news yet.
interesting. I would, and let's also comment on the process that I'm using to categorize it. The has ChatGPT generated it is based on a certain conservatism. ChatGPT by default is conservative enough that it is not likely to generate wild ideas, nor provocative ideas. And the part that I felt slightly provocative in
Mhm.
your description was the word control dreams, which
Okay.
struck me as something that ChatGPT might not have gone for, though the rest of it did sound ChatGPT-ish. In the first example, though, yeah, I doubt if ChatGPT would have dreamt up toothbrushes. It's too weird for it,
That's an
too edgy
interesting
for it.
thought. I never thought that ChatGPT would pick up keywords and provide personalized answers based on what it considers to be wild and not. But that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Third news, an AI-driven cat pain detector web app has been invented.
Okay. AI did whatever cat. Okay, fine. Again, ChatGPT coming up with cat, something or the other, not likely. And it sounds possible, therefore true.
That is true. And it has been this application has close to 43,000 users across Japan, Europe, and South America, and it is in working since 2023 June.
I would not
So,
have guessed that.
so this cat pain detector app has a accuracy level of more than 90%. The AI detection system relies on 6,000 photos of cats where it has studied a cat's whiskers, eyelids, ears, nose, how they react when they are scared or when they are in pain. Based on that, this web app detects how much level of pain a cat is having. Interesting.
Interesting.
This the next news is $1,000 shoes that learns walking patterns and automates movements.
Again, my guess is not generated by ChatGPT and is also true. What is this?
That is true. The name is Moonwalkers, and I recommend you check that out because you're a fond of walking, right? You walk a
Yes.
lot, and these shoes are basically they kind of see your walking pattern. They have small wheels under them, and the more you walk, the faster it takes you. So it's just a little bit faster when you take a step. And even their company says, to walk faster, you just walk faster. To slow down, walk slower. To stop, you stop walking.
Fascinating. So my process, by the way, on this was triggered by the specificity of the $1,000, which again, unless explicitly prompted, ChatGPT would not likely make that up. But
So it
yeah,
doesn't
this.
create random prime numbers like that, whole numbers.
No, I mean, I've seen it generate. So, for instance, in the use case generator that I shared a while ago, I had explicitly prompted it to quantify the use case. So, it actually does come up with, say, an improvement in an efficiency metric of 20%, for example. But it needs to be pushed a little hard to come up with imaginary numbers
Right.
like
The name is
$1,000.
Moonwalkers. Check it out.
I will.
The last one, AI pastors and preachers that suggest Bible verses and customizes prayers for users based on their problems.
Even before you mentioned this, I was going to say this is something that was generated by ChatGPT and not true, simply because, uh, I mean, partly law of averages, partly what would a quiz be if all of the answers, or the majority of the answers were one side. But therefore, I haven't listened closely enough to it. So once again, please.
AI pastors and preachers that suggest Bible verses and customizes prayers for users based on their problems.
Got you. So my guess is this is generated by ChatGPT. It sounds polite enough and is framed conservatively enough for it to be true, and that this is actually false. Because my guess is that pastors would be somewhat disinclined to relinquish control over their choice of sermons to an artificial intelligence.
When you think that way, yes, but this is true. It's a real
Ah,
news. As a matter of
okay.
fact, in South Korea, there is
Ah,
a ChatGPT based Bible chatbot service that
wow.
suggests Bible verses based on people's problem. And apparently, this has been a lot popular among teenagers, people who are in their 20s and 30s, and they do not have enough time to go for mass, and go for prayers. So earlier, the news also states that earlier this year in Germany, a ChatGPT bot embodied by multiple on-screen avatars oversaw a 40-minute devotional for over 300 congregants at St. Paul's Church. So ChatGPT is also revolutionizing the religious communities, and it is, I would say that if it is being popular among the 20s and 30s people, then there is definitely a revolution because people of our age these days are not much religious, I would say, personally talking about me. So that's a
Fascinating.
good way. You create an app and then you make people believe in God.
This was fascinating. Huh? I learned a whole bunch of things, also patterns of what is likely to be true and not true. This, yeah, very interesting.
Thank you, Anand. So thanks a bunch for being on the podcast. Your insights on Gen AI were spot on. Added a cool vibe to the episode. The game was a blast too, I believe, and I really appreciate your time and expertise. Looking forward to catching up for another round of chats in the future. Thank you so
Anytime.
much, Anand.
Thanks, Sunil.